Imagine having a stroke at the age of 53, not being able to talk for 3.5 years, deciding that you're going to figure out how to get through aphasia, which is the inability to talk, write a book, never have done a podcast interview in your life, and then you grab hold of the idea and you book podcast after podcast after podcast. Hi, this is Kathleen Gage, and today I'm thrilled to be talking with author Marcia Moran, who is the author of Stroke Forward, that chronicles her stroke when she was 53, how she overcame her inability to talk. She wrote a book, and she's now a favorite on podcast shows. So stick around. You're in for a great treat.
To write and publish it. And people may think that's a long time, but it took me an entire day to write 2 paragraphs in the beginning because it was really hard for me to think of a word, think about how to spell a word and get it out. And when I typed it out, it was really unusual for me to actually type it correctly. So it took a long time to do it. So after 4.5 years, I was ready to go, but I didn't know how to get the word out there. And I have to say thank you very much because you showed me the way.
Well, I have to say thank you very much because you've done the work. Everybody that's been on the Facebook Live, it's really interesting. There seems to be a common denominator. They actually did the work. And, it always amazes me, the people that say, oh, I'm not getting a result. And then you say, well, how much time are you putting into outreach? How much time have you put into your one sheet? How much time have you put into laying the foundation? And they're like, oh, well, I'll get around to that. Well, the interviews are not going to drop from the heaven. And that's really what I want to talk about today. But how old were you when you had your stroke?
53.
53. Okay. For some reason, I thought you were 49 and you just look younger than you are. So how old are you now? I know we're not supposed to ask women their age, but oh, well.
I'm 59.
Okay. So you're going to be 60 next year, and you are showing that it's never too late to pursue your dreams. And you had told me the story, and I really would like you to share this with people so they understand that even though it took you 4.5 years, there was a period where it could take you all day to write a paragraph or two because your focus wasn't there. Did you get TBI from the traumatic brain injury from the stroke or?
No.
Okay.
No.
What did you get from the stroke?
So I was paralyzed on the right side when I had the stroke, and I got some movement back early on, but I was actually had trouble walking for 1.5 years. And I worked with a physical therapist for 1.5 years. Well, 5 physical therapists actually, before I walked what seems to be normal now. I'm still not normal, but it seems to be. So that doesn't seem so bad if you think about, I had aphasia, which is a speaking disorder. And aphasia, they say if you have aphasia for 3 months, you probably have it for life. Okay, so
and explain what aphasia is for people who have never heard that before.
So aphasia is a speaking disorder. So for me, I could hear people talking to me. I could understand them, but I couldn't speak back. Okay. And so I found a way around aphasia 3.5 years after the stroke. And I think that's really important because I went to a doctor who said, you should try neurofeedback. And he gave me a site to go see so I could understand what he was talking about. And essentially, neurofeedback is a small device that is connected to his computer. And he has electrodes that go here, and in the back. And it pulses your brain with really small electrical pulses. So small that I couldn't even feel them. But after 16 sessions, I could talk again.
Wow. Yeah. And were you writing the book during that period of time, or did you start writing after the fact?
So I wrote the book. I started writing on the first anniversary of my stroke. So I had already written the book, and I read it and I put it down because it had no emotion in it.
Ah, okay.
And I picked it up again and I rewrote it, and it was better, but I didn't have enough emotion when it came to speaking about my family.
Right, right.
And this is really important because I needed to be an open book. So I had to be totally open about my family too. And it's scary.
Because you're vulnerable and they become vulnerable, which really
Right.
it ties into the whole issue of getting podcast interviews and what you share on podcast interviews. Because I know sometimes people want to be perfect on an interview and they want to say all the right words. And trust me, having been on as many as I've been on, trust me, I completely mess up at times.
Yeah.
And sometimes things will come out of my mouth and I'm like, did I really just share that? You know, like I did one yesterday where I talked about being a blackout drinker. It's like, did I really share that? And so we've got some people on the live, and the reason I'm looking over to the side is because I've got my other computer going and I can kind of have two screens going. It impresses me when I have two screens going, but no, quite seriously. Want to read Yvonne DeVita says, impressive. I cannot imagine what you went through. Sandy Phillips says, I figured it out. Great guest. I heard her on Matt Napo's show too. And I guess people are having a little difficulty getting in. I would love people to ask questions of Marcia as we get into what it took. Now, you worked with Diana Needham. Which I want to definitely give Diana a call or a shout out. She is in this group. She's in the Podcast Rockstar Club. She is a phenomenal woman. She has helped many, many, many authors who had the dream of being authors take their dream to a reality, and you're one of those people.
Yep.
And she introduced you to me. We had a great introduction, and we started working together. As you thought about the whole idea of getting on podcast shows, was there any fear attached to that?
Oh yeah, of course there is.
Tell people about that, because I think it's important for people to hear that.
Okay, so first of all, I had aphasia. So the thought of going on a podcast and having them say we're live and having them say, talk to me. I mean, I know I can talk now, right? But that fear is still in the back of my mind.
Right.
So I was definitely afraid of being on camera or even off camera and not being able to say anything of value. And I learned that I actually could say what I thought. And sometimes I screwed up, but you just keep going.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that because early on when we would do our coaching sessions, and I want people to know that Marcia was in some private training with me, so it went beyond the Podcast Rockstar Club, and we would actually have coaching sessions one-on-one on Zoom where we would dig deep into what your concerns were, what my recommendations were, and you did have a concern. What if I forget what I'm saying? What if I say something that doesn't make any sense? And I said, what if you do? Oh, well, you know, we all do, but you happen to have more of an opportunity for that to happen early on. And now that you've done so many interviews, how many interviews have you done? I was looking at your website and it's like, holy heck.
Yeah, I think I've got 35 on my website.
Okay. So a year ago you had none, you've got 35. That's about 3 per month average. We'll just play with averages. That's less than 1 per week. I mean, that's very doable for virtually anybody. And yet you have somebody who you had your concerns, you had your fears. What were some of the first things when you and I started working together? What were some of the first things that you did that really made a difference in you being able to get podcast interviews?
The first thing is the one pager. Never, ever, ever go live without having your one pager done.
And why?
Because you don't, okay, that kind of sets the stage for knowing what you want to say. And other people will read it and they'll say, okay, this is the person I want on my podcast. This is the perfect person because, and whatever you say on your one sheet is what you need to say. So if you don't have a fit, he'll say, no, this is not the person I need. So it helps you find people that fit very quickly.
Excellent. And I really like that you said that, because oftentimes the one sheet is more for us than it is even the host. It's like it helps us to really clarify our message. And we've got Gerald who says, actually that's Brad, how did you identify your first podcasting opportunity? He and actually, let's go ahead and answer that. Once you got your one sheet together, and we'll talk more about foundation, but how did you find your first podcast opportunity?
Well, you gave it to me.
Okay. Which I often do. You know, it's like, so I feel like the mama bird that's kicking the babies out of the nest. It's like, okay, fly. And oftentimes I bring people onto my show to give you that experience so that you see that it's not that frightening. So besides me, what was the next opportunity that you created?
Well, actually, you had 5 for me because that was part of the package. And after that, I had to go out and find my own. And it was hard at first, but then I got the rhythm of finding. So I looked on iTunes at first, and I looked through them, and it was pretty easy to see the ones that actually fit me. And I sent probably 3 messages out to people the first day, and I heard back. I go, okay.
That was easy.
It's not always that easy.
Okay.
I just want to be clear to tell everybody.
And I'm glad you are clarifying that, because some people might hear that and then they try and they get no result at all. What do you think has been the distinction in you getting a high conversion rate of ask to saying yes? Because I know quite a few people who have gone through my program, when they're first reaching out to show hosts, they get rejected, or they don't hear back at all. And then they make 1 or 2 little tweaks, and all of a sudden they're getting an 80, 90, 100% conversion rate. So what would you say is really important if you were advising somebody, and you're advising the members of this group? What do they need to know to get a higher yes rate?
Well, I guess I went off the one sheet when I did my reach out to other people. And so I was very consistent about the things I said. Okay.
And what information, when you first reached out to somebody, let's say that you found Mary Jones' podcast and it's a perfect fit for you, and you're going to reach out to her. What's your next step of how you reach out to her?
So the first thing is you listen to the podcast.
Thank you. Okay.
Every time. So if it's an hour long, you listen for an hour, or at least I do.
Okay.
And then it helps if you find something that really connects with you.
Okay.
If you don't find something that really connects with you, you're probably not a good fit for the podcast. And then you find a way to make sure that when you're typing to that person, you're typing in why that thing that you found in their podcast is important to you.
And what kind of information do you send initially?
So I tell them that I had a stroke.
Okay.
And I tell them that I've had aphasia. And usually you have aphasia for 3 months. And I had it for 3.5 years before I found help. And you have mixed those things together. And it's probably 3 small paragraphs.
Okay, so you don't send a whole boatload of information initially. Thank you.
No.
Okay, good.
No.
And that's why you're getting such a high conversion rate. What is your process for once you get a yes from a host? What happens next?
I send them my book.
Okay.
And sometimes they want to have a connection before we do the podcast. Sometimes they don't. But I actually share with them the things that they need to have, like my website, what social media I'm on, that sort of thing, so that they can put it in their show notes. And then we just talk. The day comes and we just talk. And the best podcasts are those that you have a conversation. There are some podcasts that aren't that way. And you do your best on those podcasts.
Okay. Now, when you say there are some that are not that way, what do you mean by that?
So it's like I don't have a connection with the podcast host once we're actually talking.
Okay.
And it does happen rarely, but it does happen.
Okay. And how do you handle that?
I just put my big curl pants on and do my best.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. We've got a couple of questions that came through. Did you do a lot of reaching out, or did folks find your book and come to you? Oh, that's a great question.
I think that, first of all, Diana Needham is fantastic.
Yes.
She is, I can't even begin to say how great she is. So I was on Amazon, I was number one in 4 categories.
Awesome.
And I was 8. If you look at 25, at the top 25, I was 8. So
wow.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
That's really good. As an author myself, and it's gotten very, very difficult to make it to number 1 in a category, let alone 4 categories. And number 8, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. So I think that was the first thing, is that people bought my book because of Diana Needham.
Okay.
And I'm serious, because I did not know all the things that she did to get my book ready for publishing. And then I think it switched to the podcasts, because that was the next big thing that I did. So I think if you're going to get your book out there, you have to do everything you can to get it ready for publishing. And that includes getting someone like Diana. Well, actually, I had someone that helped me with the writing itself. So I had a writer's group.
Okay.
And they told me, oh, go ahead.
Okay. Well, the question is going even beyond, because Diana is amazing, and I do recommend that people reach out to her. Phenomenal woman, and just a great person. I mean, let's put all the business stuff aside. She's a really awesome person.
She is wonderful.
So it helps when you have the combination of the two. Now, how often now that you've been on 35 plus shows, how often do people reach out to you and say, hey, I heard you on a podcast show, or I read your book, would you like to come on my show? Has that been happening?
That happened this summer a little bit.
Okay. And were you doing a lot of shows during the summer?
Yes, I did.
I wonder if there's a connection there.
There is.
So have you kind of let that fall by the wayside, where you're not as proactive, or are you still being really proactive? And based on the answer, I'll ask you the next question.
Well, I took a job this summer.
Okay.
And now the job is over, so I'm going to get ramped up again.
And what was the job? It had something to do with working with people with strokes, didn't it?
No, I actually worked for someone I used to work with before that passed.
Okay.
And he needed a little help.
Okay, excellent. And I have to say, I was talking to a gentleman the other day on a whole different topic, and he had a very, very successful business pre-pandemic. He did a lot of set up for events where he did backdrops and everything. Well, his business tanked because of the pandemic. And rather than sit there and cry over that, I mean, he probably cried a little bit, but he said, okay, what do I need to do to keep food on the table? He went out and got a job, and he's actually driving for Uber Eats or something. And he said, it's only temporary. I know that I'll get through this. And, so I really congratulate you for looking at other options that you needed to do, and now you're back on track with your podcast interviews. What is your well, let me ask a couple of questions. Yvonne DeVita says, number 8, incredible, totally incredible. Yvonne also works with authors. She's in the group. Sandy says, do you find podcasts have not read the book makes the interview? Okay. Do you find the podcasters that have not read your book make the interview more difficult?
Maybe a little.
Okay.
But I think that my book is so small, you could read it in a day.
And it's a really good read. I have to say it's well written. I enjoyed it. It's like with Sandy's book too. Once I sat down with your book and with Sandy's book, I love that about authors when they have a book that's engaging and it's not a struggle to get through, that it's rather actually enjoyable. And when it's over, you're going, oh, where's the next one? Oh, so question comes through. This is from Sandy, this is from Yvonne. Were the shows specific to your health problems and recovery? So what are the types of shows that you've been on?
So it's interesting, but some shows are about authors, which I found fascinating. Mm-hmm. Some are about stroke recovery. Some are about just general well-being. So it's really a range. You have to be looking broader than just, gee, it's about strokes I have to look for. No, it's about anything you want, as long as there's a connection you can make between that connection and stroke.
Absolutely. And Yvonne says having copies to send to people is so important. New authors don't know that. And that's so true. Because I know some authors who say, well, that's going to be expensive. That's your marketing. It's like when you figure the unit cost of a book and then postage. And when I send my book, I send it priority mail because I want to make sure that they see it and it kind of stands out from the crowd. But I think that's a really important point that you're bringing up about sending your book to the host. Now, once you're, go ahead. You have something you're going to say.
So I asked them, do you want a hard copy or an electronic copy too?
And what's the ratio?
I would say 75% of people want a hard copy.
Okay. Yeah, it's nice to have it in our library, and it's nice to be able to sit in the morning without the computer on and read a good book. Yeah. Once you get the show, you've done the interview, what do you do next? What's your next process?
So I need to get it up on all the social media sites, on my website, all of that.
Okay. And what about you put the link on your website too?
Yep.
Okay. And you have a really great media page on your website, and you have the whole list of shows that you've been on. And the nice thing about that for the people newer to this program who may not see the value in doing that, or it's like, oh, I'll get around to it. Do it as you get the shows, because once you start doing a lot of shows, it can really pile up. And it's like, what show was I even on 2 weeks ago? But it's social proof to the podcast host that you've been on shows, and they can listen to some of your episodes or watch some of your episodes, which actually leads into the next question. What's the ratio of the audio interviews compared to audio and video? How many of them are actually on camera?
I think I've done 4 on camera.
Oh, okay. And the rest are not on camera?
Yep.
Okay. And then let's see. Yvonne says, oh, that's so important, asking if they want the ebook instead. I hadn't thought of that. Excellent. Okay. Any other questions from people? And Marcia, what else would you like to share with people as far as like tips and insights for how they can actually really optimize their membership in the Podcast Rockstar Club and really get the most value for doing podcast interviews?
So I think that people should go to the sites that you recommend.
Okay.
That's one. And look through everything that they've got, because that's the good way to get podcasts. Is you don't have to do a lot of searching on the on your computer. You can just go through these emails and go,
right.
Oh, this is really awesome. I wonder if he wants me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I want to encourage people to really look at is when you reach out to a host, read their description, because I have 2 shows. One is Power Up for Profits, and that's more of a business and author type show. And the other one is Plant-Based Eating for Health. The Plant-Based Eating for Health, people have to be, there's no exception to this rule, 100% plant-based vegan. no exception.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the number of times that I have people that try to skirt around that, or they'll write me and they'll say, I'd like to be on your show. And it's like, okay, give me some evidence that you would be a good fit. So read their description and say, I noticed that you're looking for guests who talk about overcoming an illness or overcoming an accident or writing a book or, how to deal with a stroke, whatever it may be. And put that in your message, because then it saves you and the host a lot of time. I can't tell you how frustrating that is as a host when I get those messages. And my more generic show, that's one thing, but when it's so specific, and I make no exception to that rule. And I've had people get upset. They go, do you realize I'm 95% plant-based and I've written a book that sold 500,000 copies? And it's like, God bless you. I'm glad that you did. When you're 100%, then give me a call. I mean, that's just the name of the game. So,
well, I think it's odd because if they listen to your show, they'd know exactly what you're looking for.
Exactly. And here's a great question from Brad. Did any shows require you pay them to be on? Have you ever had that happen, Marcia?
There are some shows that asked for payment, and I said no.
Perfect.
So I was not.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because Brad, you do not need to pay to be on shows 99% of the time. Now, if it's a show like, let's say it's the Ellen show or something, or Oprah, or Lewis Howes, or one of the big shows where they've got millions of downloads, that's a whole different conversation. But for most people, myself included, we do not need to pay to be on shows. However, you may pay to subscribe to some of these platforms where you can find shows, but you're not paying the show host directly. So, it really frustrates me when I encourage people not to pay, and then they say, oh, well, they only needed $75. You add that up at the end of the month. If you get 30 interviews, that's over $2,000 that you could pay a virtual assistant to go out and find you really targeted shows. With some of these that you pay, they don't care what your topic is. And they say, well, what we're going to do is we're going to put it up on Apple Podcasts. We're going to put it on Spotify. We're going to put it on YouTube. We're going to put it here, here, and here. Every host does that. When I have somebody on my show, I do a blog post, I do the audio, I do the video, and we put it all over the place, because as a host, I want to promote my show. So, speaking of which, do you ever, before you get on a show, Marcia, do you ever say to the host, you'll promote it for them? What's your dialogue around that?
Well, I tell them all the places that I will promote it.
Okay.
So all the social media, my website. And I also send it out to the people that are on my email list. So if people sign up on my website, they're on my email list.
Perfect. And let's see. Yvonne says, yay, don't pay to be on a show. Just like I say, don't pay to get an agent to read your book proposal. Yes, on the platforms, listen to Kathleen Gage. I love that, Yvonne. Thank you. Deborah says, such good information for the live today. Thank you. And thanks for being on, Deborah. Brad says, okay, we asked that question. Okay. Anything else, Marcia, that you'd like to recommend to people?
So it's interesting because I always tell stroke patients, never give up. But it's important to never give up on anything that you choose to do. So if you want to write a book, if you want to be on podcasts, never give up. Excellent.
And Brad says, did all the shows automatically send you a permalink to your interview? Yes. Okay. And Pat, my good buddy Pat Monsieur says, always listen to Kathleen Gage. Thank you, Pat. And when it comes to health and nutrition, listen to Pat. She knows what she's talking about. So Marcia, in closing, what are your final thoughts?
I agree with her. Always listen to Kathleen Gage.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just so appreciate your time today, Marcia. You are amazing. I love working with you. I love watching your progress. And I encourage people, if you've not gone into the training material yet, what are you waiting for? Dig in. All the information you need is there. It takes you step by step. And you too can be on a Facebook Live. This is going to go on YouTube. This is going to go all over social media. I'm going to do a blog post with it. And you can be on one of these lives. Here's the criteria. You have to go through all the training. It's like you can't skip around, and I can look in the back room and see what percentage of the training you've gone through. So you have to go through all the training. You have to get at least 3 interviews and deliver the 3 interviews, and they have to go live. And based on that, you let me know, and we have a conversation. We book you for a Facebook Live. Right now, we're booked out for about a month, and next week, we've got Lana from Montana, Lana Nelson, who wrote The Food Code. She's got a phenomenal story. I'm really excited to be interviewing her. I absolutely adore you, Marcia. I think you're doing phenomenal stuff. You're making a difference in the world, so keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too.
So there you have it, Marcia Moran, author of Stroke Forward. Visit her website at www.strokeforward.com. That's strokeforward.com. And for those of you who want to join the Podcast Rockstar Club, all you need to do is go to powerupforprofits.com/podcast rockstar. That's powerupforprofits.com/podcast rockstar. Have a fantastic day and go out and rock it.